Good evening, welcome again. I want to take a moment and make a video about the historical ill advices that have been given to black Zimbabwean leaders and try to see how they've shaped our current living conditions and our current position in global politics as Zimbabweans. The first one in the formation of the modern day state of Zimbabwe after the Mustapa state was the state of Mtwakazi, which was led by Mzilikazi, King Mzilikazi himself. King Mzilikazi had a white friend by the name of Robert Moffat, and this Robert Moffat is the one who told King Mzilikazi when Mzilikazi had conquered the modern day Centurion, which is between Midrand and Pretoria here in Gauteng. That place is rich with mineral resources. King Mzilikazi had conquered that place from I can't remember, was it Aba, it wasn't Abatembo, it was Abakwena. The Abakwenas have reclaimed the place now, but anyway, I doubt if they control the mineral resources right now. It's white people who do. Now, Robert Moffat in the early 1800s, said by the historians as a friend of Mzilikazi, advised or ill-advised Mzilikazi to move from Centurion and go to a place near Matopo. And he directed him and told him where how to go, where to go, and where to settle. Settling in what is the modern day Matabeleland. Mzilikazi might have thought that the white Robert Moffat was his good friend and was giving him good advice. Yet, what Robert Moffat was doing was engaged in a geopolitical warfare where he ill advised the whole country and moved it from the rich region of Gauteng and taking it to a place in Zimbabwe, that place at which by that time gold deposits were not known of. The idea of gold deposits in Zimbabwe was to be known later on, and even there was this rush in the 1800s, in the mid 1800s, towards the end there, of an El Dorado or a discovery of King Solomon's gold mines that was believed to be in Zimbabwe. And the British began to rush towards that place, which was a place that was run by King Mzilikazi by that time, seeking concessions to, towards the kingship of Mzilikazi and also towards the kingship of Lopengula. So the friendship of King Mzilikazi and Robert Moffat would serve very pivotal in British South African company to be able to get some concessions in in uh, in the state of Mtwakazi, as it was called back then. So that is how British colonization, happened in Zimbabwe. But they later discovered that the gold deposits that they had thought were present in Zimbabwe were not found. But however, they had already colonized the country, and they had some gold mines going on in other mines around the country. And one of the biggest mines was the Bush Tick mine, which is now currently a school in Esegodini, just outside Bulawayo. It's one of the most prestigious schools, which was turned from a mine, and that mine was expected to become something amazing. But anyway, the rest is history. I say that I want to highlight some historical mishaps. That was a historical mishap for Mzilikazi to move from Sanjiron and go to Sekle in Matabeleland, a dry region. When we look at the vegetation of that place and the climate of Matabeleland, it's very dry, it's very hot, it's not good for agriculture. It might be good for cattle ranching, but that's all. By that time, they had not known of gold deposits. So King Mzilikazi was ill advised by white people and it failed and it took that. And therefore, we lost the Egoli, place of gold. which was going to be an inheritance for all Ndebeles, and probably the Ndebele state or the state of Mzilikazi would have stretched from Gauteng all the way to Zimbabwe, meaning that the Great Dyke and the mining complexes of Gauteng would have partly been part of the Ndebele state, which probably would have merged with a Zulu state in the later formative years and might have had the super state, which is probably a Zimbabwe and South Africa super state. But we couldn't achieve that because of that first ill advice. The second ill advice is when the white people, uh, the way that they got the concessions from King Lopengula, we know about the signatures that are purported to have been signed by King Lopengula to give away the mining rights to the British South African company. And because King Lopengula was not well educated in British law system and also did not have the military backup to back up his own uh, uh, um, uh, court system. Therefore, he was defeated by the British colonies, British colony, and that began the colonization of Zimbabwe. Fast forward in the late 1970s, when Zimbabwe was going to be given independence, which is a fake thing, by the way, by the British, they also ill-advised Robert Gabriel Mugabe, who, because of the need to be powerful, a desire for power above all things, and not understanding the nature of the global geopolitical warfare that was waged against black people, he agreed and therefore to lead the country on conditions that the white people would control the means of production, the agricultural sector, the mining sector, that was left largely in the hands of white capitalists and black Zimbabweans just given the opportunity to uh, just to vote to choose a leader. And he was also ill-advised in the early 80s when he was told to get rid of his opponents in the form of Joshua Mqabonkomo, and ill-advised to participate in a killing spree in Matabeleland, which forms what is now called the Gokora Hunde War in the 1983 to 1985 period, and thereabout. Well, the whole idea of ill-advising him to participate in Gokora Hunde would serve as a stain in his presidency, as those who advised him and aided him, the globalists who advised him and aided him, would be able to use that in the future to be something, a weapon against him, and to bring a wedge between the Ndebele people and the Shola speaking people in Zimbabwe. And that stain had stayed on for a long time, and the ill advice of actually crushing the Ndebele state, of which the British colonizers, remember, always feared the Ndebele state, because the country that they took in the 1890s, they didn't take it from ZANU-PF, they didn't take it from Sekoro Kakovi, they didn't take it from Buyanehanda, they took it from Lopengula, they took it from Twagazi state, and therefore, fast forward 100 years later, when they were in Britain and Lancaster House conference, the British made sure that they do not give back the country back from the original owners of the country, who is the Ndebele state, and therefore opted for a competitor. Even though in the 1960s and 1970s, during the war, there was no animosity or competition between the Ndebele people and the Shona people. However, when the British came into being and propelled Robert Mugabe, and he was willing to take that ill advice, a wedge was created between the two peoples who otherwise did not have a wedge at all. But the British have always feared the strength of the Ndebele state, and therefore ill-advised the ZANU-PF government in the 80s and 90s to destroy the industrial hub of Bulawayo itself and the whole region as a whole, because they still have the fears of the state of Ndebele, which was the really offensive part of Zimbabwe. Remember, if I might just take you back a little bit, the real capital of Zimbabwe was Bulawayo, and how the British came in, they came through Fort Tuli and moved over in Masvingo, Fort Victoria, because they were trying to encircle uh, Lopengula. And because Masvingo was too close again, they had to move further to Salisbury, which is modern day Harare, where they set up the capital city. But after they had took the country, they still developed Bulawayo because they had captured it from Ziligazi and made it an industrial hub. And as I've been saying, I mean, said it also in the previous video, the concept of allowing some people to succeed and not allowing some people to succeed. So the British Empire allowed the white people that were running Rhodesia to succeed. Hence, Rhodesia was a good country where both Salisbury and the Bulawayo and the industrialization of Matabeleland and becoming a supplier in the region was actually something that the British hegemony allowed it, because those that were running the affairs were white people. So, come 1980, when the country was given to the hands of black people, that concept of letting Zimbabwe to succeed had to be dropped by the British Empire, because they were not black people. As I've told you, that they allow some people to succeed and don't allow other people to succeed. Therefore, there is no way ZANU-PF was going to be allowed to succeed. In fact, the reason why ZANU-PF was given power instead of ZAPU, or the reason why Robert Mugabe was given power instead of Joshua Nkomo, is because Joshua Nkomo was seen as someone who was going to lead prosperity of his people, not only the Ndebelers, the Shona people as well, the whole country. And that was a threat to British hegemony and their understanding that they are fighting a war against black people, not just the politicians, but black people as a whole. So they had to come in within the congregation of black politicians and find weaker hands, those that are willing to sell out the country, as people say, those that are willing to create a pariah state to destroy the others within the country. And they found that in Robert Mugabe and the ZANU-PF regime. So the 80s went by. The miracle of the 80s was short-lived, as Robert Mugabe bent off the money that was given by the British Empire. Come 1990s, the SWAP era, and up to the time when suffering was so much, Chenjerai could not stand it, and he started pursuing this policy of land invasion. And Robert Mugabe had to buckle and accept, even though he had not wanted to do that, but he had no choice. He had either face the wrath of his own people, or or be on the side, or if he had been on the side of the British and not allow people to get the land, he was going to face the wrath of his own people. Now, but then, since he allowed the people to take the land because of their robustness and the stamina of Chenjerai Hunzu, who was of Shona descent, which is surprising because it was the Ndebelers that wanted the land in the 80s, but they were crushed through Kokra Hund and stuff like that. And so they kept quiet, they closed their mouth. So now, but because fundamentally the land issue was at the core of the liberation struggle. And the land issue isn't just land itself, it's about owning means of production and being financially free to be able to build your own societies. But Robert Mugabe was given power by the British Empire because that he would not allow black people as a whole to succeed. But 20 years down the line, when Chenjerai Wunzu came along and he was Shona, so it was difficult for Robert Mugabe to do a kukura on the Shonas. But anyway, as you might be surprised, something like that happened. We'd have things like Muramba Tswina, we had things like election violence in Mashonaland, which was a means of crushing black people from opposing the regime, whatever it is that the regime wanted. But the regime was acting on behalf of the British hegemon that wanted to create this state of failure, continual state of failure in Zimbabwe. So even Morgan Tsvangirai himself, who was who was seen by others as a champion of the people, and other people who thought that he was going to get help from Western countries. You remember there was a time when Morgan Tsvangirai was videotaped in foreign land plotting the removal or the illegal removal of the Robert Mugabe government. But he was recorded in the United States with white people. Nobody really asked the question, how did those white people who were talking to Tsvangirai take the side of Robert Mugabe when they actually were against the human rights abuse in Zimbabwe, but seemingly behind the side of Tsvangirai? Why did they record Tsvangirai and sell Tsvangirai out to the Zimbabwean regime? It's very simple. Because here it is, my people, Washington and the British establishment are not interested in the growth and prosperity of Zimbabwe. What they were doing with Morgan Tsvangirai was playing dirty politics to make Morgan Tsvangirai think that the British and the Americans want to remove ZANU-PF and bring about a change and prosperity to Zimbabwe. Yet they use all of that, the trust that Tsvangirai gave to them to use that and 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 and, and blame Tsvangirai here in Zimbabwe. And Tsvangirai had to attend court sessions. You remember? I remember the time when Tsvangirai spoke about if Robert Mugabe doesn't live peacefully, we're going to remove him violently during that era. That together with the video that was videotaped in USA gets to show you that actually the Americans play dirty politics. They play both hands to play against each other so that the real enemy is the majority of the people. So Zimbabweans, I want you to understand that when the enemy attacks you, it's what they call a scorched earth policy that they use. It's about destroying you completely as a people so that there is no, you're not there. There's nothing that is left around. So before you go to the so-called American friends, know very well that at the back of their minds is an intent of using any weekend in Zimbabwe, including opposition, even those that are in leadership. The moment you begin to look west or look east to solve your internal problems in Zimbabwe, you have lost the plot. Therefore, it is necessary for Zimbabweans to first and foremost, before engaging with foreigners, I'm not saying that engaging with foreigners is a bad thing. However, you have to engage with yourselves as people. But the weaker hands, remember, are given authority and power. Okay, the power, military power, guns, bullets, and oppressive power. They also given what you call governance power, which is used as a tool of oppressing the rest of the people. So my point here is that the American Empire and the British Empire, when they look at ZANU-PF and we hear them say that they do not like ZANU-PF because of human rights abuses, they are lying between their teeth. They are lying, those child of devils. They actually enjoy what ZANU-PF is doing, and it is them, and it is up to them to propel ZANU-PF and to remove ZANU-PF. Therefore, I appeal to you, British Empire and American Empire, that your strategies that have worked are going to get to a place where they shall not work anymore. You too need to be advised to know that God is bringing to an end that strategy. The utility of that strategy is going to backfire. But I'm not going to tell you on this video what is going to happen unless you change your mind. Now, let us go back to the ill advices of leaders. And now, the the next thing I want to talk about is that the ill advice that will be given to the next government is actually to prosecute the people that stole money from 1980 to 2023 or so, to prosecute them or to pursue a war against them, whichever way, and which will also take, we should be taxing on the peace of the country, because the global political players do not want to see peace in Zimbabwe, because they know the moment there is peace in Zimbabwe, the moment there is unity in Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe will take off like a bullet train. Nobody will be able to catch it. So you must understand, Zimbabwe, that you as a country are being fought against. in as much as Zimbabweans have bought into this narrative that their enemy is ZANU-PF and their friends is foreign white people. I like to posit to you that on the contrary, your real enemy is those foreign white people that you seem to love. And ZANU-PF is the weaker hands in the country. And therefore, we need stronger hands. And also, Chamisa is another weaker hand in the politics of Zimbabwe because he is willing to be part of the quagmire, to be part of the plan to become an opposition that will really never take power, because power is never taken from those in authority just by talking, but power is taken from those in authority by coming to a realization that those in authority have to hand it over to you, just like the British handed it over to ZANU-PF. And even the next regime, ZANU-PF itself is going to hand over power to the next regime, because the dynamics that will be at play will necessitate for ZANU-PF to move over and make sure that there is a new governance that will take over. However, that government that is going to take over will be ill-advised to pursue a policy of hatred, of vengeance that will tax on the pace of the nation and therefore take us to a lot of years of infighting and whilst uh, delaying the development of the nation. Because at the bone of contention here is the development of a country. Should Zimbabwe be allowed to develop or not? The globalists have decided since long time that Zimbabwe will not be allowed to exist as a country. Therefore, they have been doing all sorts of ways to destroy even the nationhood, the very sovereignty of a nation of Zimbabwe. We can become a pariah for even for the next 100 years or so. Look at Cuba, look at Haiti, look what they have done to those states. Zimbabwe is no exception. Cuban people, at least, they look lighter. They might be closer to whiteness, but two black Zimbabweans are so dark, being scorched by the sun. Therefore, they have zero interest in talking about you, talking about your well being. They only talk about your well being on CNN just to appear like they really care, that they love you, but in reality, they want you gone, even dead, even like the land having nobody at all, you know. But therefore, understand therefore that the war is real and the enemy is stranger than fiction. Therefore, it's time to buckle up. Zimbabwe, ZANU-PF, Triple C. If you want to live, unite or perish.